Cheer me up, Connor. Tell me something good about the media.
Afraid I'm not going to be doing that. So Fox News yesterday decided to commit total rating suicide by firing Tucker Carlson. On the same day, joyfully, CNN also sacked off Don Lemon. Let's look at the reasons as to why they both did that and enjoy one while lamenting the other. If you want to learn how ideological corruption will destroy everything you love, you can pay us £5 a month and go over to the website to get not only our full podcast uncensored for free, but also the premium content that's behind the paywall. And this video, for example, is on how real communism has already been tried. It was a 45-minute mini presentation I did on how, if you really look at the texts and history of communism and its experiments, its states, you find out that all of its economic premises are wrong. They never come to pass. The dialectic of historical materialism, its prediction just totally fails. And the only thing that ever happens is the replication of dictatorship and genocide, which Marx and Engels just so happen to have endorsed explicitly across their entire career history. So excuse me if I think that communism, that the means of just murdering your enemies is actually the ends, and I hope I make a compelling case. Open to arguments to the contrary. Not really, it's commie nonsense. Anyway, let's go on to this one. So it turns out that Tucker has not only been sacked, but his lead producer, who seems to have been someone who pays attention to our side of the aisle, is also gone as well. So he has a team of loyalists around him that would like to exit. So it does really seem to be a turfing out of the particular break that Tucker's programming had from the mainstream containment you would otherwise see on networks like Fox. Tucker's producer, for example, was one of the leading reasons why Orrin McIntyre got more views, because Tucker decided to put one of McIntyre's tweets up on the show when Orrin was relatively obscure. And he has since become a man who has formulated quite a few phrases that have shifted the Overton window. For example, don't make us tap the sign, though we can't bring said sign up because we're on YouTube. Anyway, let's go to the next one. So this is the effect it had. Immediately, they erased $507 million in value off of Fox's stock market. So Class A shares of Fox Corp sank as much as 5.4% on Monday before trimming to losses to 2.9% after the company said Tucker Carlson was fired with immediate effect. The departure comes just days after the network agreed to pay $787 million to settle a defamation lawsuit brought by Dominion Voting Systems. We'll be getting into that slightly later.
So that scale of move, that is the sort of, that is a huge move for a single employee leaving. That's the sort of scale of move I would expect to see if a well-regarded CEO left unexpectedly from a business. So that's a big move.
Yeah, we can go to the chart actually in the next one in the tweet, and Bloomberg decided to visualize it for us. And as you can see, yeah, that's really bad.
So that other dip there, that would have been the Dominion News
I
settlement.
believe so, yeah.
Where they had to pay, was it $333 million? And it was that little blip. And that one is the
Tucker
Carlson
going.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. Plummeting.
Remarkable.
Yeah. So, interesting thing that happened, though. This was back in the Bloomberg article. A speculation over Carlson's next landing spot spread, investors snapped up shares of Rumble.
Interesting.
Rumble stock rallied by 6%. Very curious. Anyway, on to the next one. Tucker was, of course, the most highly viewed rated show on cable consistently over the last couple of years. So it's no wonder that their stocks took a tumble. So he was beat in quarter one of 2023 by The Five, which is their panel show, by about 10,000 viewers. But that's pretty much an anomaly. And the reason that format's taken off, it's now been replicated in GB News, except with much more left-wing hosts. Anyway, so Fox had all of the top 10 slots in the last year. So The Five had 3,256,000 over the average of 58 telecasts, whereas Tucker had 3,246,000 over 53 telecasts. So hair thin between the two. MSNBC, they cracked number 14. So that was their top rated show. And then Anderson Cooper was CNN's most watched, and that averaged 703,000 total viewers, which was number 26. So it's not even close in the ratings. Fox News are blowing out the competition, and Tucker Carlson is consistently, or was now, top of the pack. If we go to the next one, in March specifically, Tucker was the absolute top, pulling in an average of 3 million viewers a night. And it's no wonder, particularly because he was he was the show that broadcast new January 6th footage with recontextualizing old facts that we already knew and helped the QAnon shaman get out of prison because it's an obvious farce.
It was the only thing on Fox News that I ever watched, and looking through Twitter, an awful lot of Americans are making the very same point.
Yeah, well, Tucker was one of the only people on television which wasn't just a pundit. His monologues made the news. He decided to break stories in his opening addresses. It wasn't just rank commentary. Like, over here, for example, we we script all our segments as presenters. So we both do the research and we decide to present it to you. That means that we actually know a comprehensive amount of the things we present to you. We care about the topics, and hopefully that bleeds through the passion and the intrigue into our content. A lot of the time, news hosts, you will get them be very dispassionate. They'll give you the talking points. They'll tell you what to think, not necessarily how to think, and inspire you to go and do the research for yourself. Tucker really did that, and he was very entertaining as well. It's hard to believe that he's in his mid-50s because of the baby face, but his facial expression did become a meme for many a year for a reason. You know, it's something I've gotten into trouble with on regular mainstream outlets because I let my face say it all. But Tucker's brand was the look of total bemusement when someone starts waffling on about total nonsense. And so it's going to be something that the mainstream audiences really miss, because the important point is here, and we just said about Rumble, of course Tucker's going to get snapped up with offers from elsewhere, or if he goes his own way, he's going to be a titan on independent media platforms. He'd probably overshadow Steven Crowder, frankly, if he does go to Rumble. But we have lost something here, and that is the normies that don't know what Rumble is or can't even get on the interwebs will now not have the sole mainstream voice who is speaking out against January 6th, comprehensively, the Ukraine war, all sorts of other issues. They won't have it dropped in front of them on their television every night. So that's just going to be out of their frame of reference.
Everybody else on Fox News is within the Overton window. They're just on the right-hand side of the Overton window. Whereas Tucker was consistently pushing outside of it. He was anti-military industrial complex. He was anti-war. He was not signed up to the, just vote for the red team this time. He recognised the corruption there. He recognised the corruption in the media. And he was the only based voice that the boomers ever got to hear. Because they're not going to follow him to Rumble or wherever he ends up.
No, they don't know what that infrastructure is. So we have lost something here. I'm glad that a sizable audience will follow Tucker, but it's going to be more difficult to make inroads on mainstream platforms as it goes forward. If we go to the next one, Megyn Kelly has obviously been celebrating this because she also broke away from Fox, and she's done fairly well for herself going entirely independent. So she's made the point that Tucker's going to crush it. And on the flip side as well, speaking of Daily Wire, Jeremy Boring, who's the head of the Daily Wire, has decided to tease the idea that he'll get out a giant novelty check like Michael Scott in The Office if Tucker Carlson were to decide to court the Daily Wire for viewing. I don't think Tucker needs the backing of Daily Wire, frankly.
And I should also point out at this juncture that I can neither confirm nor deny if Lotus Eaters are in discussion with Tucker at this very moment.
I can confirm we can't bloody afford him. Be nice, though. I mean, I don't want to get upstaged by the bow tie if he brings it back. But anyway, it'd be fantastic. But I don't think it would be the smartest career move for Tucker to necessarily sign with another network. I can't speak for him, but I think he'll do well enough on his own as an independent. But again, if it's not in front of the boomers...
Well, he's got that whole studio, because he doesn't actually go into New York anymore, does he? He's got that whole studio in his hometown, I think. And I think he does it all from there. So, I mean, that could easily be repurposed.
Sure, but I don't know if he owns that. So it's very different. So the Daily Wire guys, as we saw,
I'm sure he could raise the capital to rip it out and put a new one in.
Sure, but it's not necessarily that he owns the property. So let's put it this way. The Daily Wire guys gave Crowder $50 million overhead to cover the production costs.
Yeah.
I don't know if Tucker is just contracted, as with his producers, which is why his producers were sacked or left, or if Tucker runs it as a limited company and incurs all the costs as part of his contract and therefore pays for it.
It wouldn't take him long to set one up.
No, it wouldn't take him long to set up a different one, but he's not going to get the same set.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. If we go over to the next one, please. This was Tucker's final segment. We're not going to play the clip, but I thought it ended in quite a nice, wholesome, mimetic way. And that was a delivery driver, pizza delivery man, who stopped a carjacking. So Tucker decided to invite the delivery man in to give some pizza, and so he just sat around chatting to him like a genuine dude and ate some pizza. It's quite a wholesome thing.
He is an actual nice guy, and it's something you can't fake. You are a nice guy or you aren't, and he genuinely is.
Yeah, there was that video. I didn't bring it up actually, silly, but some guy in New York came up to him while he was fly fishing in Central Park.
Oh yes, he's quite confrontational, isn't he? And Tucker just wins him over within about space of 2 minutes.
Yeah, Tucker just had a polite chat, and he said, "Oh, it's all right. It's on the Central Park website. You can fish here, here, and here." And he goes, "What? Do you normally fish here?" "Yeah, there's some bass here. I go fly fishing here. Look, I make all my own tackles or whatever it was." And Tucker had a sincere conversation with him about a wholesome little hobby he does. Just seems like quite a nice bloke. Like he could be fiery, but considering the state of America and the world right now, I'm not shocked he gets angry. We do too. But when he's having a chat with people, seems pretty sincere, and that actually looks like really good pizza as well. Wonderful. Anyway, on to the next one. Why fire Tucker? if we've got all these great things to say about him, if he's a clear bulwark for fantastic ratings, why would they have the motivation to take him out? Well, this is quite interesting. So this is one aspect that might play into it, and that is the Dominion lawsuit that we've already alluded to, and that's why Dan Bongino probably left Fox as well. And Dan's got his own show on Rumble, so he's insulated himself from that. So good luck, Dan. Hope it's all going well for you, mate. The settlement, which was $787 million, so they didn't go through with the full amount, which was in the multiple billions. They settled out of court for it. Had already been selected for trial in a Delaware Superior Court, so that avoided the possibility of Fox TV hosts and Rupert Murdoch, the head of the network, having to testify publicly. Lawyers for Fox declined to comment as they left the courtroom, though the network would release a statement afterwards saying, "We are pleased to have reached a settlement of our dispute with Dominion voting systems. We acknowledge the court's rulings, finding certain claims about Dominion to be false. This settlement reflects Fox's continued commitment to the highest journalistic standards. We are hopeful that our decision to resolve this dispute with Dominion amicably, instead of the acrimony of a divisive trial, allows the country to move forward from these issues." I have seen a clip, and I should have included it here, of Jake Tapper reading out that statement on CNN, and he was just chuckling and saying, as if Fox could have any journalistic integrity. I can't read this seriously.
So is there a suggestion that part of the Dominion lawsuit settlement was an agreement to get rid of Tucker?
It is possible. I mean, it wouldn't be necessarily that they kicked Tucker off the air, but it may be that they were worried about being sued for future issues.
Well, I mean, Tucker didn't go there, did he?
No, he didn't. And we'll get into that in a moment. Yeah. So obviously we can't comment on the veracity of any claims made by Fox News' presenters or hosts about Dominion. We're just not going to talk about that at all. I can say it didn't help the cause of election integrity to have grifters like Lynn Wood or clueless people like Sidney Powell as the brand ambassadors for the particular case. And Tucker seems to agree with me, and he said so in such a monologue because, and this was quite a while ago now, this was after Tucker had Sidney Powell on the program. Tucker said, "Powell refused to send him evidence supporting her claims, despite multiple requests from Tucker Carlson tonight. When we kept pressing, she got angry and told us to stop contacting her," Carlson said in his segment. "When we checked with others around the Trump campaign, people in positions of authority told us Powell had never given them any evidence either, nor did she provide any today at the press conference." So Tucker didn't go there.
I do remember that now. That was one of the brief periods where the fan base fell out of love with Tucker because he was pushing back on this stuff. But
yes.
Because that was back in the days where we kept on expecting Sidney Powell to come forward.
The Kraken.
The Kraken, yeah.
And it turned out to be
materialized.
A dead fish. It turned out to be just as mythological as she claimed. Yeah. Well, when you're talking about the ghost of Hugo Chavez doing Redacted, then little bit beyond the realm of credibility. But anyway, we can't talk more about election integrity because we are on YouTube still. On to the next one. This was quite interesting. Lots of people have been saying, okay, well, now that he's out of the TV game, maybe Trump should just pick him as his VP or press secretary. During the Dominion lawsuit, certain texts were disclosed, and during the voter fiasco, let's use that word, Tucker had some choice words for President Trump. In Fox News's, slightly up. "We are very, very close to being able to ignore Trump most nights. I truly can't wait," Carlson wrote in one text to an unidentified Fox employee on the 4th of January 2021, according to the filing. "I hate him passionately. I blew up at Peter Navarro today in frustration. I actually like Peter, but I can't handle much more of this." So I don't think Tucker is destined on the Trump 2024 ticket to go to the White House. And also, it seems that Tucker, throughout this situation, was not on board with the Dominion defamation materials that were said on air. Again, all we can say.
I mean, Tucker has, I think, what it takes to certainly enter the race on his own, not necessarily being on someone else's ticket. I mean, he's been very clear that he has not the slightest intention of doing so.
Yes, and I don't think I wouldn't question his eligibility for it, but I do think he should have some experience within the political machine, probably as a VP, before he makes his own presidential bid. Because what's going to happen is the swamp will try and destroy him every which way but loose. And so you do need a demolition candidate.
Yeah, it'd be wonderful to see him
there
as
first.
DeSantis is running mate or something.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes, and he could also stop the neocons getting to DeSantis, which is currently happening.
I do tend to come down a bit more on the DeSantis side. I mean, Trump is excellent. Trump should go on Mount Rushmore. But DeSantis should go in the White House because I think he can actually get stuff done.
That is if he doesn't fall prey to his establishment donors, and I think having Tucker Carlson around him would very much stop that.
Yes.
Because DeSantis was quite neoconish when he was in Congress, and he has since flip-flopped on support for Ukraine. So Carlson could move him back
to be
towards
fair,
base.
we have all evolved our understanding of what government is over the last sort of 5 years or so.
No. DeSantis has flopped back.
Oh, I see.
As in, he's endorsed more because he did come out and say there's some questionable things, and then the establishment bore down on him, and he said, "Wait, guys, you've taken me out of context, Slava Ukraini," which wasn't the best, but maybe Carlson can win him over. Anyway, on to the next one. This is interesting though, because if we go down here, just in this article, despite Tucker Carlson seeming to be on the right side of the Dominion defamation lawsuit, Rupert Murdoch is not very happy with him. In Fox chairman Rupert Murdoch's January deposition, the media titan said he had seen no evidence that Dominion interfered in the 2020 election to disadvantage Trump. "You've never believed that Dominion was involved in an effort to delegitimize and destroy votes for Donald Trump, correct?" a Dominion lawyer asked. And he said, "I'm open to persuasion, but no, I've never seen it. So you should think that they're allied." However, if we go on to this one from the Los Angeles Times, this was an exclusive. It seems that Murdoch personally intervened to get Tucker out.
Well, there's not many people in the organisation who could get rid of a star of that magnitude, so it probably does come down to Murdoch.
And I'm not surprised. So what could Tucker have done? And I probably won't be back on Talk TV for covering this. I just thought about that. Anyway, so according to one person familiar with the discussions, Murdoch's late son Lachlan, executive chairman of Fox Corp, and Suzanne Scott, chief executive of Fox News Media, declared late Friday that Carlson had to go. Murdoch was also said to be concerned about Carlson's coverage of the January 6th insurrection at the US Capitol. The host had promoted the conspiracy theory that it was provoked by government agents, and Carlson had called Ray Epps, an Arizona man who participated in the storming of the Capitol, but did not enter the building, an FBI plant, without presenting any evidence. And then Tucker was also reportedly fired 10 minutes before this information was made public. So it was rather unceremonious. Yeah, so they hushed him out the door as quickly as possible. Why do I mention the Ray Epps thing? Well, maybe they're worried about getting sued again for defamatory claims, right? Well, Ray Epps was the gentleman, and you can see videos of this online, and you can, if you scroll down to in this Newsweek article, there are tweets of Marjorie Taylor Greene sharing footage of Ray Epps shouting, "We need to go into the Capitol." And there's also the clip of Ted Cruz questioning the head of the FBI, were there FBI informants and agents on the ground at January 6th? And she says, "Senator, I can't answer that." So excuse me if I'm a little suspicious. Plus, as well, of all of the January 6th prisoners, people who didn't enter the Capitol and still got charged, why is the media coming to bat for this one guy? Like, New York Times did a full interview with him late last year. It's really weird that this one guy, they're going, "Oh, no, don't lock him up. He's all right," even though he's explicitly calling for violence and everyone's calling him a Fed, not to trust him. The media is collectively going to bat for him in his defense, but not a single other prisoner or person implicated.
Oh, I mean, this entire thing stinks.
This glows in the dark.
Absolutely. I mean, America has political prisoners. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and Ray Epps isn't one of them.
No.
Curious. So conservatives and conspiracy theorists have fixated on Epps, who say he holds the answer to why hundreds of then President Donald Trump supporters stormed the US Capitol. Epps, they said, was a government plant that sowed the seeds of insurrection well before a crowd rushed the perimeter around the Capitol steps. While speaking with CBS's 60 Minutes in an interview that aired on Sunday, why are 60 Minutes interviewing him? Very curious. Epps said, "Tucker Carlson is obsessed with me. He's going by any means to destroy me." When asked by 60 Minutes correspondent Bill Whitaker why Carlson would do that, Epps said to shift the blame onto someone else. So you're already seeing the narrative that Tucker Carlson is responsible for the worst thing to happen since 9/11. The FBI issued this statement to 60 Minutes in response to theories that Epps had worked for them on January 6th. Ray Epps has never been an FBI source or an FBI employee. Sure, Jan. But got me thinking. Okay, if Murdoch's worried about getting sued again by false claims by Tucker Carlson, and Ray Epps is saying that they're false, why hasn't Ray Epps sued them yet? Is it because they're worried what will turn up in Discovery?
Maybe he just doesn't like money.
Yes, yeah. He doesn't like that multi-million settlement from the defamation insurance that Fox handed over to Dominion that seems to just be waiting for Ray Epps if he can produce any evidence at all that he was in no way an FBI informant. Curious that.
That is a good point. Yeah.
Also, quite interesting as well, this piece from Los Angeles Times came around right about the same time as Tucker was let go. There is a producer who has decided to try and sue Fox News, Abby Grossberg, and she's filing a lawsuit in New York and Delaware that's alleged discrimination based on gender, religion, and disability. Her suit claims she was bullied and subjected to sexist and anti-Semitic comments while working as head of booking for Tucker Carlson Tonight. If we go on to the next article from Bloomberg,
What's her disability?
Liberalism?
Yeah.
It actually contains some of the information from here. So I'm just going to read some of the things that were found in the discovery. Fox, this is something that Tucker was annoyed about during the Dominion lawsuit. The early projection that Joe Biden won Arizona had angered Donald Trump and set off calls to boycott the network. Evidence collected among the Dominion lawsuit showed Fox's top brass and on-air personalities feared viewers' wrath. Carlson was especially demonstrative. "We worked really hard to build what we have," he wrote in a message that went on to use expletives to describe others at the network who were, quote, destroying our credibility by calling Arizona. "It enrages me. Do the executives understand how much credibility we'd lost with our audience? We're playing with fire. For real, an alternative like Newsmax could be devastating to us." Seems that he's foreshadowed his ousting and the major ratings drop that's going to happen. And then it goes on to Grossberg's lawsuit in here. She cited a private message between Carlson and his executive producer, Justin Wells, in which the star described Powell, Sidney Powell, using crude and sexist terms, including a vulgar reference to a part of a woman's anatomy. Wells was also dismissed today, according to media reports. Such comments weren't unusual for Carlson's staff. "Unprofessionalism reigned supreme on the show," Grossberg said. "The staff's distaste and disdain for women infiltrated almost every workday decision." Sounds like a great place. On her first day on the job, she said, she was shocked to see blown-up photos of then Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi in a plunging bathing suit revealing her cleavage. Grossberg said she'd also witnessed a crass and sexist discussion over which Michigan gubernatorial candidate, Gretchen Whitmer, or Republican challenger Tudor Dixon, was hotter. Grossberg, who is Jewish, claimed her supervisor described another colleague to her as going to visit a Jewish bakery and going to see his people. Oh, the horror.
I'm just Googling Tudor Dixon.
Go for it. She doesn't accuse Carlson personally of any misconduct. Right, so all of this is a coordinated smear job released around the same time as the Dominion lawsuit and Tucker's firing. And they're trying to say that Tucker is guilty of all sorts of sexist, racist, ableist, anti-Semitic comments. But nowhere in her lawsuit does she implicate Carlson directly.
So just to come back on your previous point, Tudor Dixon is way hotter than Greta Whitmore.
I mean, Gretchen Whitmer is a very low bar.
Yes.
Anyway, on to the next one. We also have the fact that there is some establishment from the top pressure, and we can see, as the prior thing from Ray Epps tried to blame Carlson for inciting January 6th, AOC, the favourite establishment talking head, very empty talking head, has decided to go on MSNBC with Jen Psaki. You remember the former press secretary who now has her own show? How fascinating.
Does anyone watch it?
It's MSNBC, of course not. But AOC decided to make a staggeringly big-brained comment here. Let's give it a listen.
Federal regulation in terms of what's allowed on air and what isn't. And when you look at what Tucker Carlson and some of these other folks on Fox do, it is very, very clearly incitement of violence. Very clearly incitement of violence. And that is the line that I think we have to be willing to contend with.
So, a couple of days before Tucker gets fired, she is calling for Congress to draft legislation to take him off the air for incitement to violence.
Yeah, I think this one is a random coincidence. I don't think she has any effect on anything.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I think it's a bit of a stretch on her part, but then it did actually happen, of course.
Well, yes.
And so she decided to do what all good consumers do and make a comparison to a Marvel movie while celebrating that deplatforming works. Let's play the next clip.
Tucker Carlson is out at Fox News. Couldn't have happened to a better guy. What I will say, though, is while I'm very glad that the person that was arguably responsible for some of the largest, driving some of the most amounts of death threats and violent threats, not just to my office, but to plenty of people across the country. I also kind of feel like I'm like waiting for the cutscene at the end of a Marvel movie after all the credits have rolled. And then you see like the villain's like hand reemerge out to grip over like the end of a building or something. But deplatforming works, and it is important, and there you go. Good things can happen.
So she's essentially there calling for the total unpersoning and eradication of Tucker Carlson's platform anywhere. And Fox News have just handed who should be their enemy a smug victory. So if you ever wanted proof that most of the establishment media is containment, even though they market yourself as their friend, yeah.
But I mean, let's just boil her point down to the simple facts. The entire liberal political program is about criminalizing any opposition to what it is they want to do.
Yeah, of course.
It's as simple as that. She is just an authoritarian communist.
Yeah, and I'm actually glad that she exists because it dispels the right or anti-woke dissidents or whatever you want to call us of the possibility of a value-neutral society when you coexist with communists who have a global scope for their ambition. You can't say that we can all just get along.
No.
You can't say that you're committed to inviolable free speech that you're incapable of defending as a principle, because what's going to happen is they are going to assert their standards whether you like it or not. So it's going to require constant defense. So if you want free speech, we can have it in our box over here, but we can't have it with people like her.
This has been the biggest wake up for the right over the last few years, is to realize that we are not playing a fair game here at all. And that has been because people on our side have always thought if we present the better argument that we all win. It simply doesn't work like that. The left is actually right when it comes down to it's largely just a power play.
Yeah, it's not about reciprocity, it's about hierarchy. And this is something that Carlson actually said in his recent Heritage speech, which I didn't include. I should have. It's fantastic. Go and give it a watch.
Absolutely go and watch that, because I mean that is brilliant, because he frames it in an ethical context. He talks about these people as, let's just
it's
be
a
clear,
spiritual
they
war.
They are evil. He frames it in spiritual terms. He comes out against the military-industrial complex. He talks about the collusion and collaboration and concentration of ownership in media. He talks about the military-industrial complex. He pours scorn on the Republican Party's milquetoast attempts to basically contain people. Absolutely brilliant. Check that out.
Yeah, and he conceptualized it as this movement is not trying to disagree with you on marginal tax rates. We are not headed in the same direction.
Yeah.
This is a movement of entropy trying to eradicate everything in its path so they can rebuild from the ashes, reform from the chaos. And I quite like this civilization. I quite like my peaceful, happy family life. And I don't want everything destroyed. So what we do is we don't disagree with these people. We must crush them in turn. And AOC understands that better than Fox News do.
Yeah, exactly. And he also makes this brilliant comparison on abortion, about how it used to be safe, legal, and rare years ago.
Which was always an impossible...
And now it is actively celebrated. And he points out, if you are actively celebrating it, that is just straight up infanticide.
It's a prescription to eradicate the human race.
Yes.
Yeah. Also, an interesting thing for top-down pressure that might be influencing Fox's decision to oust their biggest host. Just purely speculative. We can't confirm or deny that this did have an impact at any point, but BlackRock recently snapped up more shares in Fox. So, Fintel has reported that BlackRock filed a 13GA form with the SEC disclosing ownership of 45.74 shares of Fox Corporation. This represents 15.1% of the company. In their previous filing, dated January 27th, 2022, they reported 39.87 shares and only 12.4% of the company. So this is an increase of 14.75% and an increase in total ownership of 2.7%. And the interesting thing is, as their ownership share went up, the number of total owners also dropped by 1%. So proportionately, they have a greater share of power.
Well, I mean, it is impossible to know what back-channel communications BlackRock might have had. However, BlackRock are one of the most active on the boards of the companies that they get involved in. And 15%, I mean, that is going to be absolutely crucial, because most shares don't vote. They are very active. They will. So 15% is easy enough to make the difference between whether the CEO gets renominated to serve another term at the next board meeting. So it's impossible to know, but entirely credible that that's possible.
And it just so happens that Tucker Carlson is the biggest mainstream voice on television speaking out about ESGs. Very odd.
As well as many other things that BlackRock are invested in.
Yeah. So Fox News have decided to commit suicide. But, weirdly, CNN have done something sensible. Maybe they're trying to snap up their market share, or maybe they're trying to stop hemorrhaging all the money they spent on CNN Plus. And the rising star of CNN Plus, someone who's worked at the network for well over a decade now, Don Lemon, has gone. Now, Tucker pointed out that he was probably set up all the way back in 2011, so he decided to warn us in advance. And Don Lemon seems to have been set up as well, because if we go over to his Twitter, good news, everyone, Don Lemon decided to give a really professional address. If we can just click and enlarge this image here, this is how he decided to announce to Twitter, despite being verified, so he could do a longer tweet, that he'd been sacked. I was informed this morning by my agent that I have been terminated by CNN. I'm stunned. After 17 years at CNN, I would have thought that someone in management would have had the decency to tell me directly. At no time was I ever given any indication I would not be able to continue to do the work I have loved at the network. It is clear that there are some large issues at play. With that said, I want to thank my colleagues and the many teams I have worked with for an incredible run. They're the most talented journalists in the business, and I wish them all the best. So it seems that he got the Tucker treatment, right?
Yeah. 10 years ago, he was very different. I mean, he spoke about things with a level of authenticity.
He told black people to pull up their pants and stop having kids out of wedlock. You know, the typical Nazi
all that
points.
kind of stuff. And he has been so utterly cucked in these last few years.
Well, his private conduct leaves a lot to be desired, so that might have something to do with it. I mean, he has been known to face sexual assault charges because he's rubbed his hands in his crotch and put it in men's faces. That's a thing. Right. In a bar. Yeah. There's a weird sex pest thing going on at CNN because one of Chris Cuomo, obviously brother of Andrew Cuomo, who was also sacked from the New York governor's office, not because he put COVID patients in old people's homes and killed them, but because he decided to grope someone and say, well, I'm Italian, what did you expect? Chris Cuomo's producer was caught in a paedophile sting. There's some weird stuff happening at CNN.
Yeah,
can't allege anything, of course. The thing is, though, I think Don Lemon didn't do nearly as good a job as he thought because he couldn't even accurately report on his own firing. So CNN, for once, decided to fact-check him with communications. Don Lemon's statement about this morning's event is inaccurate. He was offered an opportunity to meet with management, but instead released a statement on Twitter. And Elon replied, interesting. So he's just stirring the pot there. So Lemon doesn't have the most credible record on television. And as you said, his dwindling viewership seems to be a marker of the fact that his integrity's gone down. And this seems to have been the final straw. And this was Republican candidate Vivek Ramaswamy going on the network the other day. And if you listen to this clip while Lemon was arguing with Vivek, he seems to upset backstage. And that might have been one of the last times he ever did it. So let's play and listen and enjoy this.
With due respect, I find your explanation reductive and actually insulting, including to black Americans, to say that black people today, compared to 1964, 1865, haven't made progress in part because of the freedoms we secured. And the Second Amendment was
black
part
people,
of what secured
hang on,
that
please.
freedom.
I cannot keep a thought if you guys are talking to me in my ear. So hang on one second. So to say that black people, say what you said again.
Black people secured their freedoms after the Civil War. It is a historical fact, Don. Just study it. Only after their Second Amendment rights were secured.
They
That's
were
a
not
fact.
secured their freedoms after the Civil War. That is not. You are discounting Reconstruction. You're discounting a whole host of things that happened after the Civil War when it comes to African Americans, including the whole reason that the Civil Rights Movement happened is because black people did not secure their freedoms after the Civil War, and that things turned around. People tried to change the freedoms that were supposed to happen.
And you know how they got it?
War
They got their Second Amendment rights, and they actually got the NRA played a big role in that. But today, Don, the
NRA did not play a big role in
absolutely,
that.
they trained black Americans how to use firearms.
That's a lie. That's not. The NRA did not play a big role in that.
This is just historical fact.
It's
but
not
Don,
historical fact.
The part that I find
because you say it's historical fact.
The part that I find insulting is when you say today black Americans don't have those rights after we have gone through civil rights revolution in this country.
You are sitting here telling an African American about the rights and what you find insulting about the way I live, the skin I live in every day.
Here's where you and I have
the
a different point of view.
Black and white that black people don't have in this country, and that black people do have.
Well, here's where you and I have a different point of view. I think we should be able to express our views regardless of the color of our skin. We should have this debate
I'm not saying you
without me regarding you as a black man,
insulting that
but
you're
me regarding you
here,
as a fellow citizen.
That you're
That's what I think
here,
we should say.
whatever ethnicity you are, explaining to me
whatever ethnicity
about
I am,
what it's like to be black in
whatever
America.
ethnicity I am, I'll tell you what I am. I'm an Indian American. I'm proud of it. But I think we should have this debate. Black, white, doesn't matter.
I think we should have this
on
debate.
The content of the
ideas.
ideas.
If you're going to do it, you should do it in an honest way and in a fair way. And what you're doing is not an honest and fair way. Okay? But we appreciate you coming on.
With due respect, Don, I look forward to continuing that conversation.
We'll
Thank
continue
you.
the conversation.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you, Pop.
We'll talk about China.
Yes, let's talk about China.
Next time you come back.
Oh, thank you. Much to say on declaring independence from China.
Okay,
something you
can
can
we move
add
on now, please?
Thank
Right,
you.
we can stop that there. As you can see, Poppy Harlow felt very uncomfortable in the corner because she also has her earpiece in and is probably listening to the production booth behind the scenes going, Don, shut up.
Yeah.
Stop spreading race propaganda. Stop yelling over the guests. We look terrible. Stop it. And one thing that you don't do when you're on air is acknowledge production because it lifts the curtain and it makes you look unprofessional. And given this was a really embarrassing interview, not by CNN standards, of course, but when he turns around and says, whatever ethnicity you are splaining to me, trying to pull out the intersectional hierarchy.
He accuses him of white splaining.
Yeah, for an Indian man. I think that Don Lemon's career, unlike Tucker Carlson, who's sharing pizza with an upstanding American citizen, has gone out with a whimper rather than a bang.
Yeah.
So good luck, Tucker, and bon voyage, Donny boy. We hope you enjoyed that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters. If you did, you can go over to our website. We can get the podcast in full, uncensored, and for free, as well as paying us as little as £5 a month for all of our premium content. For example, Stelios' series Symposium, where in this episode, he talks to Carl about oikophobia, the fear of one's country. If you'd like to find out the rest of the content that we're putting out, you can follow us at lotuseaters_com on Twitter and on Getter. Until next time, goodbye.